Today I'm going to be taking you through the Oculus Quest 2, and explaining why some of the features of this are far better than the first generation, but actually some of the features are far worse. Welcome back to another episode of STU'S Reviews. Without a doubt, the Oculus Quest has been an amazingly successful device for Facebook. Earlier this year I took a look at the Oculus Quest 1, which I concluded was one of the best value headsets that money could buy at the time. Well, that is until this came out, the Oculus Quest 2, because this is on paper higher spec and it's even more affordable than the first gen. So without further ado, let's take a look at the specs. This is Facebook's second gen device, and being second gen, it's packed full of improvements on paper, but is largely evolutionary rather than revolutionary, featuring many of the same core elements of its predecessor. The design is rather simplistic, with very little on the exterior of the unit. Only two buttons, the power and the volume, meaning this is a relatively light headset at just 503 grams. Internally, it runs Qualcomm's Snapdragon XR2, featuring 6GB of RAM and a base memory of 64GB. The Elite strap seen here offers a new style of strap adjustment similar to that on a bicycle helmet, and there's even a version with a battery in, but without this, the battery life on its own lasts about 3 hours of normal use. The new Quest has 3D spatial audio powered by the new chip, and it's rather good, and it means you don't necessarily need headphones, although there is an auxiliary port for headphones and you can connect via Bluetooth as well. The controllers have made a small change too, featuring a supposedly more ergonomic style and a few new bits which we'll get onto in a bit, but other than that they run pretty similar, still requiring a single AA battery for power. The top two upgrades and the main meal of the Quest 2 are the graphical changes and the display changes. Now when it comes to the display, the Oculus Quest 1 ran a display of 1440 by 1600 per eye. Now that was an okay resolution, but it did lead on occasion to slightly fuzzy text and sometimes not necessarily clear items in whatever you're doing. Well, the new Quest 2 has a nearly 20% increase over that in resolution. You're looking at 1832 by 1920 per eye, which is an incredible change, and it makes a big difference when looking at things like text and other stuff through the display. It just comes across as much sharper and therefore much more immersive. For me though, it's the graphical changes that have taken centre stage, because Snapdragon's XR2 chip inside the Oculus Quest 2 is awesome, and it's made differences already. Look at Arizona Sunshine, for example. They've added much more detail into the new version on the Quest 2, which is really quite nice. It makes it a much more immersive experience, but I think it'll be a little while before we see developers really make the most of the XR2. The thing that worries me here though is that a few developers already come out and said they're working on Quest 2 exclusive content, which to me is a terrible idea because it creates massive fragmentation and is going to cause a lot of sour faces. Because let's face it, the Quest 1 is less than 2 years old. Now I'd be furious if I just bought a Quest less than 6 months ago before the Quest 2 come out, and then loads of experiences get released exclusively for the Quest 2. I think that's massively unfair, and I think developers need to ensure going forward that they're making content for both the Quest 2, which is optimised to make use of the extra processing power, and also playable on the Quest 1, because having only a 2-year life cycle on a Quest at £400 a pop, that's going to get very expensive and is going to cause a lot of upset people. I guess the counter argument here is that technology needs to move forward and we need to embrace new technology. I mean, that's the same reason why you don't have floppy disk drives on your computers anymore. And if you don't know what a floppy disk drive is, then that exactly proves my point. I'm old, aren't I? The thing is, I did criticise the Quest 1 on its graphics capability and the fact that developers seem to opt for a more cartoony and stylised graphics style rather than going for a more realistic approach. And that's because you can get away with that much more than you can trying to recreate real life. It becomes glaringly obvious that everything is really poor quality, but games like Pistol Whip and Super Hot and even Pixel Ripped, these games are fantastic. absolutely incredible games. And they adopt this kind of cartoony or stylized style, which is fine. But the new processing power in the Quest 2 means that games can opt for a slightly more realistic approach, such as things like The Walking Dead, which is certainly more grounded on factual appearance. Even if it's a little bit stylized still, it's a bit more of an immersive, realistic experience. Right, social distancing, Karen. Don't come any nearer. 2 meters distance. 2 meters distance. Karen! Incidentally, I want to say a quick thing about The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. The developers behind this game have added accessibility into the game itself. So if you're stood up like me, you can start it up and you're good to go. But if you are in a wheelchair or you have to sit down whilst playing, all you do is go down to the height that you're at and click the thumbstick in, and it adjusts automatically to your height, which is fantastic, and more developers need to build this level of accessibility into Oculus Quest games, because unfortunately there's a lot of games and apps out there that just are not accessible for people that need to play seated, like those who are in a wheelchair. So heed my warning or advice, developers. Please build this sort of thing into everything, because it's fantastic and we need to see this more to make VR accessible to everybody. Anyway, now there's one more thing that's been improved on the graphical side of things, and that is the refresh rate. Now with the Quest 1, I mentioned that 72Hz refresh rate on the Quest 1 wasn't that important, and that really most people wouldn't be able to tell that it's 72Hz, because most VR headsets run at 90Hz and upwards. Well, the Quest 2 does indeed run at 90Hz. And my comment about it not mattering was semi-right. It does make a difference and makes things clearer and sharper and a bit more immersive, but it's not the be-all and end-all. But there's a problem here with the 90Hz refresh rate in the fact that it can only run in the home environment. Now this is the area that you spawn in immediately at startup, and you can browse your app library along with the store to start up any content you might want to play. And if you've got things like Plex or Netflix, you can kick back and watch a film. Or if you're really inclined to do so, start up the Oculus web browser and enjoy some alone time. Because the truth behind the matter is that 60% of the top VR websites are not game websites. And in fact, the very most viewed website is also not a game website. I don't know what you naughty people like to use VR for these days. Unsavoury. Now, Facebook have said that they are going to run an update that will make everything across the board run at 90Hz, and they've even said that it's going to be here in November in this month, but at this moment, November the 5th, that I'm filming this on, it's not yet available. There are workarounds to this to get every single app running in 90Hz, and I'll show you how to do that in my next Oculus Quest video if they haven't yet updated it. So stay tuned for that and hit that notification bell if you're interested in seeing an instructional video how to get your apps running at 90Hz on the Oculus Quest 2. But there's also going to be some other interesting stuff in there, so stay tuned. But there's a lot to cover today, so I'm not going to go through it now. Let's move on. The experience as a whole has one more upgrade, which is quite small, but for me has made a huge difference, and that's the tracking element. Now, it's not necessarily the tracking capabilities, because that really hasn't changed that much, although the new processor does allow for a slightly better tracking. And as I've said in my Quest 1, they've not changed the way it works in the sense of its 6 degrees of movement. So you can move your head up and down, left and right, side to side, and you can also move around in the room up and down, left and right and forward and back to give you 6 degrees of freedom in whatever application you're using. And that's really, really immersive. But the change they've made is the angle of the cameras on the side. They've actually moved them slightly further back. Now this makes a massive difference in games like O-Shape, where you're constantly putting your arms out to the side or above you, making weird shapes to get through obstacles that are coming towards you. Now, the reason it's made such a difference is because when you put your arms to the side, on the Quest 1, it didn't always track where the controllers were and often glitched out so that you ended up failing that particular level. Well, because the angle is slightly wider now, it can pick me up, or can pick my arms up when they extend, which is really, really important for games like O-Shape. So that is an amazing change that is so minuscule, but is actually incredible. But I would have loved a camera on the side somewhere, built in to the strap or something, I don't know. Obviously the strap is changeable on these, so that couldn't necessarily have been built into the strap, but somewhere on the side to allow real tracking from behind you. That would have given a much more immersive experience, but we can't have everything, can we? The new display, the new graphics, the new tracking, all of it is incredible. But the display and the tracking are really useful at making them very comparable to desktop VR headsets. Now, I've covered this in my Quest 1 reviews already, but the Oculus Quest headsets can actually be used as a full-on desktop VR headset. So if you haven't got one for your PC, you can actually plug it in, open up an app called Oculus Link, and play full-blown PC VR experiences, which means that you get all of the processing power from your computer to be able to play with on the headset. And because now the specs are comparable to current desktop VR headsets, then it makes a great experience for people who want to use this with PC VR. And it's cheap as well, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So here is the point in this review where I stop talking about all of the better things of the Quest 2 and start telling you the things that aren't quite as good. Now, first of all, let's talk about the design and the style of the Quest 2. It just feels cheap. Firstly, it feels plasticky. I mean, there's no fabric on the outside anymore, which I liked. It felt premium, it felt grippy. This is just slippy white plastic that reminds me of a 1990s PC. And like a 1990s PC, it's probably going to become nicotine yellow in no time at all. The inside, there's no material on the inside of the headset either, which means that it doesn't block as much light out and doesn't feel anywhere near as comfortable. They've changed the material on this as well. This is kind of like a furry foam rather than whatever was in the previous one. Overall, it just feels cheap. It feels really, really cheap. I mean, it is cheaper, and again, I'll get into that in a bit, but it feels cheap. But one thing is for certain, the included strap is... It is one of the worst straps, most uncomfortable VR headset straps I've ever used. Ever. Interestingly, when I pre-ordered this, I didn't actually pre-order the strap. Instead, I thought, well, do you know what? I'll crack on with it. It will be fine. I'll be able to put it on my head and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Well, I was wrong. It was not fine. I lasted about 20 minutes before I ripped it off and put the Elite strap on. Now, the only reason I got the Elite strap was because another YouTuber, Mark Watts, we were backwards and forwarding on Twitter, and he convinced me to get the Elite strap. So, Mark, thank you so much. You're a star and you saved my Quest experience. So guys, go and check him out. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check Mark's channel out. But there's one thing for certain, that strap is going to be banished to the bottom drawer of my desk, never to be seen in the light of day ever again. So my advice to you is, if you are going to buy a Quest 2, you're gonna have to chip out and get the Elite strap. But there is a very big but with this. There's been a ton of reports about the Oculus Quest Elite strap snapping during use. And in fact, there's been that many that Facebook have come out and issued a statement. We're aware of some reports involving cracking or breaking of the Elite strap accessories, and we're actively looking into this. In the meantime, anyone who experiences the issue with an Elite strap accessory is encouraged to contact Oculus support for a full refund or replacement. There could be a quite simple answer to why it is snapping and breaking. With the Quest 1, this is the strap that came with it, and it has an almost elasticy experience. You can pull it backwards and forwards, and it's elasticated in the side. So when you're putting it on, you can pull it forward and backwards, and you're not putting any stress on the strap itself because it has springs in the side. The Oculus Quest with the Elite strap doesn't have that function. There is no give in it at all. So if you're putting it on and you're tightening it down and then pulling it off, you're putting a lot of stress on the strap itself. which is completely understandable. So you have to loosen it when you take it off. And if people aren't doing that, I can imagine that is what's causing a significant amount of breaks. But it is obviously a very brittle material, so that's a little bit disappointing on Facebook's part. Overall, I just think the design of the headset is just not as premium as the first generation, and it's less comfortable, and I find myself adjusting it a lot more to get comfortable when putting it on initially. Albeit the Elite strap does hold it on your head much better, and once you've got it adjusted, you don't need to do much adjustment after that, but it's definitely not as comfortable as the first generation. And that is just the headset. Let's talk about the controllers. Supposedly, they've made them more ergonomic than this, but it really does not feel like it in any way, shape or form. These were awesome controllers in my eyes. Why fix what's not broken? I mean, these ones had awesome rubbery texture on the bottom. They didn't feel slippy in the hand. They just felt really solid, awesome little things. And the ergonomics were really nice. With this, they feel bigger, more cumbersome. They've got this gigantic stick-out section here that when I'm playing games like Pistol Whip, I want to feel like I'm shooting a pistol. But this just gets in the way. It's really, genuinely much more uncomfortable than this one. Now, I'm not sure that everybody will agree with that. I'm sure there are going to be people that prefer the Quest 2, but in my eyes, I just feel that the controllers are nowhere near as comfortable as the first generation, so I am a little bit upset with that. There just really is no natural way to sort of place your hand when you're playing games that I feel is more comfortable than the original controllers. The reason for it being so uncomfortable and the pad being bigger is they've now included this bizarre little thumb rest type area, which actually unusually has a sensor inside of it, so you can use it in games like Walking Dead and put your thumbs up at zombies for whatever reason. Also, on the lens area of the Quest 2, you've got no fine IPD tuning, and instead you've only got 3 preset levels, whereas on the Quest 1, you could pretty much adjust it between a huge range. Meant if your eyes were really far apart or really close together, you could really adjust it to fit your shape of head, whereas this being only 3 pretty much presets there, it makes it much more difficult to actually adjust and get comfortable. Let's take a chill pill, take a breather, because there is a reason why all of these are downgrades in the quality, and that is the price, because the price is actually £299, £100 cheaper than the Quest 1, which in my eyes is an unbelievable difference. I mean, if someone was to take bets on whether or not Facebook would have increased the price of the Quest or reduced the price of the Quest, I can bet 99% of people would have put money on Facebook increasing the price. But for them to actually drop it by £100, that shocked us all. This pretty much explains or gives reason for all the downgrades and the experience that I think are downgrades. Also, things like in the retail packaging, there's very little extra pomp. In the box, you only get the box, the Oculus Quest and the 2 controllers, obviously. You've got a charger, and you've got a glasses spacer to wear if you wear glasses. But that's it. Even the cable is a bit shorter than in the Oculus Quest 1, which means you've saved a bit of money there, but there's one thing for certain, is you're not going to be using that cable to plug it into your computer to use it for Oculus Link. Now, there are ways of turning the whole negative experience of the change in design into a more positive one using third-party accessory manufacturers. Now, there's a great company called VR Cover, for example, that basically make covers that switch out this horrible, nasty one for more premium options. Now, like I've said, this foam on the inside literally just feels like someone's cut a mattress up, whereas VR Cover make them with leather or fake leather, which feels really nice. But interestingly, on the inside, there's actually a little light blocking section as well to make things more immersive. So you simply just put this on and there we go. I've literally upgraded the experience from a negative one into a more positive one in 10 seconds by doing that. But there is a bit of a problem with this, as much as I love the changes that you can make with the accessories, in the fact that by the time you've bought all of these accessories, you've spent 50, 60, 70 quid on a strap or whatever it cost, you've spent another 40 quid on covers for your VR headset, and all the other things like added batteries and stuff, you'll have spent more than the original Quest 1 was. And here's the thing, after seeing what a cheaper Quest would look like, despite the fact that it's got, let's just forget that it's got the graphical improvements, let's just say on style alone, this is a cheaper Quest. After seeing this compared to the original Quest, I can see quite clearly there is a need here for a pro-level Oculus Quest and a more affordable Oculus Quest. A Pro and a Mini, if you will. Because if there'd been an Oculus Quest 2 that was a bit more premium, had things like an Elite strap built into it, or had material around the outside to make it feel a bit nicer, I think I would have paid quite happily £100 more for it. I mean, with the graphical improvements, I may even have paid a bit more. 450, 449, maybe that was a bit much. But certainly I would have paid $399 for a more premium option. And this is hopefully a consideration for Facebook in the future to make a version that has slightly more premium feel and premium options about it, rather than just going all out and making one version that really does feel like a cheap replica you'd find on AliExpress. And it's a shame that I have to say that. But should that stop you from buying the Oculus Quest 2? No, absolutely not. In fact, if you haven't got one already, scroll down right now into the links in the description, click on the link and buy one immediately. Immediately. And the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of this review has been about my comparison between the experiences of the first gen and the second gen. But as a standalone headset, if I've been never had a go on VR before, or I'm brand new to VR, this thing is incredible and gives you a great experience of what VR can be, because the processing in this is better, the display is incredible. Honestly, you will be mind blown. And even those of you that have an Oculus Quest 1, you will still be blown away by the changes in the Oculus Quest 2. You might miss some of the features of the one, comfort and the premium feel. But that's it. You're going to love the experience even more than the Quest 1, because, let's face it, you're playing these games to become immersed. And although it might take a bit longer to get used to the lack of comfort in the Quest 2, you're still going to be immersed a lot more with that new display and new graphics. And the thing is, it's £299. That is nothing. That makes this the cheapest, best value VR headset that you can buy, because it's a standalone experience with some incredible games, and it can work with a PC. My God, this is such a good device. And I mean, look, I said that the Quest 1 was the best value headset that has ever been made, because it was $399, much cheaper than any desktop VR headset, and it could work as a desktop VR headset as well. And this comes out £100 cheaper. I didn't think the Quest 1 could be beaten, but Facebook have actually beaten themselves in value there. This is now unbeatable value. I wonder if I'll say that when the Quest 3 comes out. That's $199. We can pray, but then if it's $199, it'll be made out of cardboard and paper mache, probably. There's one more thing I want to say before I sign off, and this is directed at people that own the Quest 1. Now, I know a lot of you will be feeling, I don't know, I guess a little bit sour that Facebook have brought out the Quest 2 hardly any time after they released the Quest 1, and I get it. I can feel your pain. It is annoying as hell, and nobody expected it, especially when you compare it to the life cycle of other standalone consoles like the PlayStation or the Xbox, which haven't been updated in nearly 8 years. So I can understand the frustration. But the question here that a lot of you will be asking is, do I need to upgrade to the Quest 2? And the answer is, at this moment in time, no. There's not really any exclusive experiences for the Quest 2 that are meaningful, and at the end of the day, the comfort and style of the Quest 1 is by far better than the Quest 2. So, don't get your knickers in a twist at this moment in time. It's really nothing to worry about. Just enjoy your Quest 1 because the experience of that is still fantastic. But if you want to, upgrade to the Quest 2 because that is also an awesome device for the money. And that concludes today's review. Guys, thanks very much for joining. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And if you do want to see more STU'S reviews and more Oculus Quest content when it comes out, hit that notification bell. I'm trying to get this video to 1,000 likes this time. So if you have gotten this far, please hit that thumbs up. It's a bit of a goal for me before the end of the year to get a video up to 1,000 likes. But if you can, it takes nothing, no seconds, just to press that thumbs up. But other than that, guys, that's enough from me. If you dislike this video, also hit that dislike. Please don't. Anyway, I'll see you back for another episode of STU'S Reviews soon.